operate in truth, right? Operate in truth. Tell the truth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Gator Truth. Saturday didn't go how we wanted. We'll talk about that a little bit, but I do want to give a congratulations to Miami fans on helping me get my most watched episode so far during the actual season. All those nice little hater comments in the preview really helped bring up the viewership. So thank you for your views, Miami fans. I know you're here. I know you're probably wanting to make more comments and giving me more victory. Go ahead if you so choose. It's funny, the complex that some Miami fans have, having to just show up, talk trash and everything. As I said to a few people this weekend, how do you prove that you're not a bandwagon fan base who's all about talking trash? By acting like a bandwagon fan base that's all about talking trash. Epitomized. And you can go see my video on X at Gator Truth 133. It's not on the podcast page. And you can see the video of what you had to walk through to get to Hard Rock Stadium. It looked like you're in a prison, and I can say that because I've visited plenty of jails and prisons. Or it looks like you are in a third world country with concrete barriers, with large 8-10 foot sections of fence right above them. So go ahead. You've shown me what it's like. With that said, this offense was so bad for Florida this week, and yet somehow it was still 13-6 or 13-7, 6-point game with 4 minutes to go. I know you got a few short fields and, well, scored on short fields, but unlike 2008 Miami, I'm not here going to cry about them. I'll be like, cool, you actually scored on those. And if you don't remember 2008, look it up. Randy Shannon, Miami fans. I remember a friend of mine, Dane at work, Miami fan, just crying about how classless it was that we kicked a field goal on 4th down. In fact, I think I referenced that either in Mike or Joe. Sorry, I almost said Mike Nugent. Joe Nugent coming on from Miami Nights. By the way, nice guy. Definitely check out his stuff if you enjoyed that episode. Either on Joe coming on mine or me going on Joe's, but I definitely did share that. I think it was on Joe's when he asked me a funny memory or something I had of a Florida-Miami game. But anyways, yes, Florida falls 26-7 against the Miami Hurricanes. Only had 141 yards, 0 of 13 on 3rd down. Not really that great. But then Carson Beck, 17 of 30, 1 pick, for a lot of the hype coming in about how, to quote a Miami fan to me, well before the game, y'all be gone at halftime. And Carson Beck did not look great, I will say. Fletcher in the preseason said he was going to be a good running back. And I got to definitely go through, and we'll go through these keys that I had as we go through the game. Of course, not a great game by the Gators. This was a team that I really still stand by. You have competent coaching. Florida's 4-0 right now. I don't believe we have competent coaching, so we're not at 4-0. It's that easy. But with that said, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the keys I had. Run the ball and keep doing it. Jaden Baugh in this game, 12 carries, 46 yards. And, of course, the good touchdown run, 3.8 yards per carry. Now, definitely some of that's on him, but a lot of it on the blocking issues. I got to say, Jacoby Jackson did get some great carries in this game. Ended up 7 carries, 39 yards, and a long of 27. We talked before the game. We've talked before. I always look to see what it's like to give a better picture of the running game, taking away some of the longs. Jaden Baugh over 3 yards per carry. Still, if you take away his long of 11, Jacoby Jackson, you take away his long of 27, and he's averaging 2 yards per carry, 6 carries, 2 yards. But with that said, he did get it going for one drive, and that drive led to 7 points and was followed by a pick. And when you got that pick, Florida having the ball at their own 48 to start, that's the time you got to drive and score. And of course, this Gators offense failed to do so. It is what it is. But anyways, run the ball, keep doing it. We weren't really running well, and that's because number 2, the offensive line and tight end improved blocking. Well, no, they didn't. They didn't do well against a lot of Miami's defensive line, especially Bain. And, well, it is what it is. And again, kudos to Bain for coming in and playing well and being quite the wrecking crew that he was. 7 tackles, half a sack, and 1 tackle for loss. But he also got plenty of pressure. I believe he was Pro Football Focus's top-rated defensive player of the week. So, gotta give credit where credit is due on that. I said hit the mid-range throws. Well, we really didn't. Definitely some bad play by DJ Lagway, and definitely times that weren't open. If you have not seen it, I do encourage you to check out Gator Nation Football Podcast on Twitter. I always like to give them a shout out because they do great play breakdowns. And they had a play where they showed we did a flood concept on the right where we had 3 guys essentially running different levels of out routes. And I'm just saying that to make it more simplified, where you've got a guy running like a 3-yard out route, then a guy who should be doing about 10, and a guy doing 20. But the thing is, the 10 and 20 ran so close together that really DJ couldn't throw to either one because the defender, who they're supposed to be making choose one of them, could guard both of them from that distance. So, of course, like we've seen, spacing. But the thing that really bothered me on this play is Miami had a completely open middle of the field, and not a single player is running to that open field. You had, I believe it's Hansen, go out left and just stand on the sideline, and then you had Baugh on the right as a check down, who I believe was the 5th read anyways, but took DJ a while. Well, not a while, but it's hard to process. Is my first read there or second read there when they're running so close together and defender can guard either one? And then he gets pressured and doesn't have time to make any other reads, tries to run out, gets a sack. Meanwhile, again, not a defender in the center of the field at all. If you had Bob maybe running an angle route where he starts running slantways towards the sideline and then cuts and goes to the middle, maybe you've got a big play. But again, is what it is. The design issues that I've ranted about for years, they were on display, along with some bad throws by DJ Lagway, and also take advantage when opportunities arrive. Well, or arise. Obviously, didn't do that. Why do we not do that? I don't know. Because this offense is possibly going to end up being the worst in the last 15 years. And that's hard to say since McElwain, a.k.a. Napier's mentor, had some terrible offenses here that were in the 110s. Currently, I think we're over 100 in most offensive stats as far as like points per game, yards per game, things like that. And it comes down really to things like Dallas Wilson not playing, unforeseen regression of DJ Lagway. This is not the same Lagway that we saw, in 2024. This is not the guy who we saw, with swagger that was hitting throws with limited space, 40 yards down the field. Part of it's rust, part of it's injuries, part of it's probably the offense, and also not having a QB coach or a true OC, I'm sure plays into this as well. But again, a big opportunity arises. You score a touchdown. Next play, Cormani McClain, pick. You get the ball at midfield. You do nothing with it, not taking advantage. So that did not help at all. This was the worst offensive game we've seen in the Billy Napier era, is what it is. But again, if this is an average offense, I do believe Florida, this is a totally different game. Defense isn't getting tired because there's not. In fact, let me go and count it. Give me one sec. before I say there's not a lot of 3-and-outs. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 3-and-outs and 2 turnovers on downs. I'm just saying off the top of my head. And of course, 0 for 30 on third downs. Again, there's some credit to Miami, but again, this is also an offense that has not been great against any FBS teams. And we're averaging 11 points per game against FBS teams. I believe that is near the bottom, if not the bottom of the FBS. And why do I say that? Because that is important context for anyone saying, you're not giving anyone credit. Well, I'm giving credit, but there's also got to be context and saying, hey, this is not a team that's really done well. 16 points, 1 touchdown against USF. You're talking about 1 touchdown against LSU and then 1 touchdown against Miami. Well, defense, I've got to say, first thing, pressure back. I think that generally they did okay. I mean, were there some holding calls? Yeah. Did Miami maybe have a touchdown called back because of a bad whistle? Yeah. But with that said, still got that pressure and did force an interception. Is what it is. Again, you kind of took some of the special out of Beck after that first drive, getting that pressure, 1 sack on by Woods, but plenty of pressure outside of that sack. So I do got to give the defense a check mark on that, especially when you're talking about, Banks not playing, Boru not playing, LJ McCray, is out with injury. Former 5-star, thought he would be a difference making a jump this year. George Gums, another starter on this defensive line, not playing. So you have 4 defensive linemen out, and that is 2 defensive tackles and 2 defensive ends. It's pretty amazing what our defense did, losing that depth. I mean, you're talking your number 1 defensive tackle and probably your number 2 off the bench defensive tackle. And with how much defensive tackles rotate, definitely a big miss. And then guys like Gums, who have high energy and probably could have brought a lot of what of true freshman Jaden Woods brought on the pass rush. And then, of course, LJ McCray, again, I believe he was top class of 2024, top defensive lineman or top defensive end, something like that. Missing him also doesn't help. So knowing we're missing that, hey, great job overall by the defense. Of course, losing that depth after a while does take its toll. Solid, or be ready for a hurry up. There's a few times that Miami did tend to go a little bit quickly. I wouldn't necessarily say they were a hurry up offense, but they did do a few things that could cause problems. I think the Gators did pretty well with that. Solid run D. I said Fletcher coming into the year, 6.5 yards per carry. And you know what? What I've got to say is he did break some runs, but 4.8 yards per carry, that's underneath his average for the year. And again, talking about missing some quality depth on the defensive line, that definitely does not help. But again, credit to Fletcher for putting up a solid game, and also Brown for 18 carries for 80 yards. Again, some of that in garbage time, but still gotta stop him. But hey, held him under his yards per game, and this defense holding Miami to 13 points until 4 minutes left. I do think that was a great defensive performance. And I think if the offense, again, was just average, Florida's 4-0 right now, but it's well below average. That's just a fact. You can look up Florida's, rankings, especially when it comes to against FBS competitions this year. Top 40 really being above average. 40 to 80 being about average, and then 80 to 120. And I think there's about 130 teams, but that being below average. And I would say that's a pretty fair way to categorize it. And Florida is definitely not playing offense right now in that 40 to 80 range. Like I said, below the 100s in it. So if you're like, hey, don't say Florida's offense is bad. Well, it is. No, our defense really just wrecked everybody. Yeah, it was good. It was all right. But we're also just bad. Like, oh no, he said his team is bad. But anyways, for the team, few penalties. I've got to say, overall happy with the penalties that we had. Didn't have too many ridiculous penalties. Now there were some times we got them. It's like, okay, what more can go wrong? But overall, 3 penalties, 20 yards, not bad in my opinion, but is what it is. No special teams flags. We had one that was picked up, and I think that was the right call, being blocked into a returner. However, 10 guys on the special teams play. We're near 4. Why is this happening? Well, we know why. And that's all I got to say. More to come after the Texas game, I'm sure, on that. Intensity and focus. I can't look at this offensive line and say that was really there. Or at least most of the team, especially being a rivalry or revenge game. But I got to say that defense definitely brought it. And again, I think they did well for what they're asked to do. And then big return, didn't really see that. But I will say, let's not be fielding punts inside the 10. It costs us, in my opinion, 3 points in Death Valley. And then, with how our defense played kind of early, allowing Miami to move the ball in this game in the first few drives, I would say that it kind of at one point cost us points here. But you know what? Let me double check, because it is what it is. Let's go ahead and see. Nope, that's out of bounds. One second. No, actually, it didn't. I take that back. The catch inside the 8, we end up holding Miami to a 3 and out. So there is that. And then, of course, allowed them to go 52 yards, get a field goal to go up 13-0 with time left in the half. But of course, we really can't do much with that. But it is what it is. So anyways, really not a great game for the Gators. Continuing the trend. Does it look like this team could end up finishing 1-11, the worst finish of my lifetime? Yeah, there's definitely a possibility. Do I think there's also a possibility that changes actually get made and Florida at least wins, 4 more games? Yeah, with the defense, I think it's possible. I mean, Texas has been struggling on offense. I mean, pretty good showing against Sam Houston the other day. But again, they've been struggling on offense against good competition. And I believe our defense at least gives them that. So you never know. You've got A&M, I said, was the toughest game going to the year. That's not changed. I don't think we win in Kyle Field. Mississippi State homecoming, definitely a shot there. We'll learn a lot more about Mississippi State this week as they host Tennessee. Going through Georgia, we'll see how that goes. I think our defense could keep us in that game, but can our offense, capitalize, which is a good question. Kentucky's not been great. Ole Miss looks more and more like they're going to replace 18 starters and still be just as dangerous as they were the year before. So I've talked to the preseason about hey, you got to win this game if your whole thing is building through high school and using the portal sparingly. Show us proof of concept. Well, I'm seeing proof of concept that maybe the portal is doing something. Is what it is. And then let's go through Tennessee, who's looked pretty good. I mean, they're a field goal miss away from being undefeated and beating Georgia. And they replaced 9 members of their offense, and their offense is clicking as good as it has in years. So again, lots of replacement, and they're doing well. What are we doing with all our retention? Who knows? And then finishing up with another heavy rotated team in Florida State. Like, that's a game, maybe end of the year, depending on record. Let's say we somehow have gotten up to 5 wins, maybe for bowl eligibility. That defense does do pretty well. Swamp comes alive. And I do believe any home game we've got a shot. It's just going to be a question of if our offense can come alive or not. I openly have not been the biggest fan of the offense for years, pointing out things like, yeah, Mertz threw for 300 yards against Utah in 2023, but he only had about 100 before we were down 3 scores. It is what it is, but it is time for a change. So at least to what we see on the offense, for the people saying, and I've seen this on Facebook, this ain't me making up, someone saying, well, maybe Napier deserves another year and gives up the OC. That was 2 years ago. And then it was last year. No. Do it now during the bye week. Say, you know what? We've got 2 weeks. Callaway, do your thing. And that can be your proving ground. Go out. I said 9-3 is the goal this year. Go out and go 8-0. That's really where I am. I said it. I stand by my word. I'm not calling for a coach's job yet, but now it is go 8-0. I'm not moving goalposts, especially after saying an offense this bad due to someone's ego trying to make up for, getting fired as a play caller and getting a coach fired as a play caller, and then, winning a bunch of 1-score games. Again, if you want to see a fun tweet, it's pinned to my profile, my personal profile at GatorTruth133, where it says, is anyone concerned? And this is from November 22nd, 2021. Is anyone else concerned about a passing offense that's ranked 86th in the nation and struggling with an FCS opponent? And trust me, that was not about Dan Mullen. With that said, we're going to get through it. Bye week, lots of fun games on the schedule. I will not have a mid-week or an end-of-week episode coming out this week, but I will, hopefully for the Texas game, get my friends back from Longhorn Pod on to talk about Arch Manning and some of the things that they've seen on their end, as they've not felt as good this year, or at least it appears they've not felt as good as this year as they should have, just kind of like we're thinking, except for we have not put a bunch of cupcakes at the beginning. Oh, yes, we did, and we lost. But anyways, with that said, I'm just here to have some fun. And hey, at least we don't have to walk through feeling like we're criminals to get to the swamp. And then with that said, thank you all for listening. And as always, go Gators.